All right, we are doing section 1.5, which is using a problem-solving plan. Now, there's a few steps that you can use to help you solve problems that are word problems. I know those are really hard for a lot of people to work through, but here are some steps that can kind of help you pick them apart to solve them. Step 1, you need to read through the whole problem and understand what you're trying to find. Step 2, you need to make a plan. How are you going to find that? Step 3, you're going to solve it, and then step 4, you're going to look back and make sure that your answer makes sense with the problem. If you are running in a city where short blocks on the north and south streets are 0.1 miles long and the long blocks are 0.15 miles long, you will run 2 blocks east, a number of short blocks south, 2 blocks west, and then you will be back to your starting point. If you want to run a total of 2 miles, how many short blocks should you run? So this is kind of a confusing question, but something I always find helpful is to draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a picture of these blocks, and we can figure out from there what we're going to do. Here's just a couple of them. Okay, they said that the north-south streets are 0.1 miles long. So north to south. And then the east-west streets are 0.15 miles long. Okay, I always think it helps to draw a picture. You'll run 2 long blocks east, a number of short blocks south, and then 2 long blocks west. So you know you're going to go 2 blocks east and 2 blocks west for sure. And then if you're going to get back to your starting point, you're obviously going to run some north and you're going to run some south. But since you get back to your starting point, you know it's going to be the same number north as south. And what else do we know? We know we want to run 2 miles. So how are we going to find this? Well, we know that our east and west blocks are 0.15 miles, so we can put that in right away. And we know that we have B number of north-south blocks, and that our total is going to be equal to 2. So we can solve for B then. 2 times 0.15 plus 2 times 0.15 is 0.6. And then we have plus, not an equals, plus 0.1b, and we know it's going to be equal to 2. Okay, so this has been a while since you've seen these one-step equations, but we know that we just need to get the b alone. So we're going to subtract the 0.6 from both sides. So we have 0.1b, and that's 1.4. So then we divide by 0.1 to solve for b. That's 14. That's telling us that we go 14 north-south blocks. But if we have the same number north as south, we don't go 14 north and 14 south. We go 7 north and 7 south. And that is our final answer. Now let's go back up and make sure that this makes sense. That's our step number 4, looking back to make sure that this makes sense. You're only going 2 east and 2 west, which means you have to go quite a few in the north-south direction in order to get to a total of 2 miles. So that does make sense, that you would go 7 north and then 7 south. Okay, now we're going to talk about a bunch of different formulas that you are going to be using. Temperature. This temperature formula is to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius. C for Celsius is equal to 5/9 Fahrenheit minus 32 degrees. And of course, F is Fahrenheit and C is Celsius. Our simple interest formula, I equals PRT, where I is your interest earned, P is your principal, which is how much money you put in initially, R is your interest rate, and you make sure you need to write that as a decimal, and T is time. We will be using these, I just wanted to go through what they are before we start using them. Okay, you have a distance traveled formula. This one you've seen before, D equals RT, where D is your total distance, R is your rate or your speed, and T is time. Last one we're going to go over before we do any problems is the profit formula. P equals I minus E, where P is profit, I is income, and E is expenses. Okay, now let's use some of these formulas. An example, you are making a leather book cover. You need a rectangular piece of leather that has a length of 18 inches and a width of 11. Find the cost of the piece of leather if it costs a quarter per square inch. So I'm going to draw a picture. Always try to draw a picture if it makes sense. Here's a semi-rectangular piece of leather. It's 18 inches long and 11 inches wide, or you could flip the rectangle, it really makes no difference. Now this wasn't one of the formulas that I gave you, but this is a formula that you should know. How do you find the area of a rectangle? Area is length times width. So we're trying to find the area of this since it's talking about per square inch of cost. So we need to plug in length and plug in width to find out how big our piece of leather is. So our area is 198 inches squared. So now since there's 198 square inches, we need to multiply that by how much it costs per square inch, which is a quarter, to give us our final cost, $49.50. Of course, this is a word problem, and we need to make sure we do not forget our label. So this is actually $49.50. Okay, next we have a gardener. This gardener is determining the cost of planting daffodil bulbs that are $2.40 per square foot. How much will it cost to plant daffodil bulbs in a rectangular garden? So this is very, very similar to the problem we just did with the leather book cover. We have a rectangular garden, which is 5 feet wide and 12 feet long. And we know how much it's going to cost per square foot. So we need to multiply again, length times width, or 12 times 5, which is 60. Then we need to take our 60 and multiply it by 240, which is how much it costs per square foot, which is going to be $144. Okay, and that's just a couple of examples. Now, if you have any questions on your homework that are not about the length times width, the formulas are up here, and you just need to plug in the pieces of information that you have to solve. That was the problem-solving plan.